and employment. We've run the travel demand model for 2050, which I'll show you in just a minute. We've also met with most jurisdictions. There's only a couple that we still need to meet with to discuss the results of the model and how that dovetails with the existing plan. Are there any new projects that we need to add? Are there projects we need to take off? Adjustments need to be made. So that's kind of highlighted and set aside because that's the state of that's where we're at in the process right now. We've met with Daniels, with the county, we've met with the city, or Midway, and we have met with Heber.
Not with the council.
No, we've met with their staff. We invited, when we contacted everybody, we said, we want to make an appointment with you. You guys are responsible to say who from mayors or whatever needs to be a part of that. And so we met with your engineer and planning group, and we asked them, is this who we need to meet with, and that's who they said was there. So
I wasn't there.
Sorry, yeah. And we can come back and show you the same thing. One thing I will point out is really not much has changed.
We did have some question in our city council the other night, so maybe you want to touch base.
Sure, we can touch base with Heber again and come back up. But if you can see up here, the map on the left, I know they're hard to see, but the map on the left is the travel demand model results. If you look at that, essentially red is slowed traffic, congestion. Orange and yellow is a little bit slower. What we did, this represents, is we took the old plan that already existed, we put it in the model, and then we added population out to 2050. So we had another 10 years worth of population employment, and then we ran the model. And really the big things that you can see, the big areas of maybe concern is, and not so much concern, but you can see US 40 north of the proposed Parkway intersection. You can see it's getting red. It's not to the point where we felt like add another lane kind of thing, because it's on the edge. But what this tells us is we really need to be cautious and conscientious about what happens along 40. We need to make sure that 40 remains as efficient as possible as far as accesses, speed, those kinds of things. You can see Midway Lane there, or
40.
Yes.
So what population did you factor in for the fact that Heber's gonna, if we annex to our next policy area above Coyote, could extensively double Heber in 30 to 40 years? That's the projection. So where 2050 envisions all about. So what happens if we double Heber's population onto there? It isn't in your model, is it?
So what we did is we took the Gardner Policy Institute's numbers, the numbers that we are required to use, and what it shows in the county out there now, or what the county has proposed out there, that is in the model. And then, but to your point, if there is a major change made, then that's why we do this every 4 years.
But it envisions their ERUs being built out in 30 years?
I can't tell you specifically in that specific area. No.
No, I would describe it this way, Bob, that the county control total stayed the same, whether it's Heber City annexes additional areas or not, because your county control total is the projection that the Gardner Policy Institute is estimating to.
Yep.
That's different than build out, as you're pointing out. Build out assumes that all of your acres have been built to their highest and best use. And really, we often talk about build out that it doesn't really exist.
Yep.
Because you're always redeveloping some of that density in the future.
Is there a way to get access to what garden, things
Yeah.
we're gonna do out there.
Yeah, we have that, that's
Sure,
what's
we have
assumed in the
that.
model, and that's what we started with that work with you guys a couple of months ago. When
Yeah.
we showed you those
We,
populations.
when we came and we sat down with you and went through all those numbers, not just a couple months ago, but a year ago, we've been going through this information.
We talked about it in the interlocal over in the
Yep.
last interlocal,
Yep.
those numbers.
Yep. So we took a model and we looked at all the projects, and we actually showed that there's really not a lot of changes that we perceive need to be made. And when we get all of the cities that we've met with, we'll get this draft list sent out to you that you guys can look at and review. Really, at this point, the only things that we've made, we made a minor change. We made a minor change here in Daniel's area that's been requested. There's a couple projects that we shortened the extent of it because some of it's already been built, and things like that. But other than that, the major projects are essentially as they were, which is a good thing. That means we've done a good job up to this point planning projects and putting things where they should be. And the model is kind of reflecting it. Hey, we're doing a pretty good job. We don't need to reinvent the wheel again. We just keep going with what we've got, some minor tweaks here and there to make things work, continue to work well. And so that's where we're at with this process. Again, we're going to meet with the last couple of cities. We're going to get with UDOT, see if they have any changes. But again, there's been no real changes up to this point. And we'll get that information back out to you if there's any questions specifically about the Long Range Plan.
Where's the deadline? When does it have to be submitted to you?
Next month.
Sometime in June?
Yeah. Yeah. They're already taking this and kind of starting to fold it into their document. We talked to them, we said we've met with most people, that we don't see any changes, but there's still flexibility there.
Okay.
But they're working on that right now. So that's where we're at. Good question. Sure.
I was just going to say, I think it's important that you always include the elected officials because they're the ones that the public's coming after, because I've been in meetings where the public's coming after them.
And we made that available and staff would make that connection.
And I met with them the other day.
Yeah. Heber City's really the only one that didn't have somebody there, and that might have been a scheduling conflict. I'm not meaning to throw you or your staff under the bus. We met with mayors or elected officials for everybody else in that process. Sure.
Does this plan anticipate any potential changes to rerouting the road around the airport? If the airport, which is, I understand, under expansion consideration.
No, the network that has been in there for the last few times, meaning the roads, they're still in the same place. And so we're just basically, as far as rerouting roads, we haven't rerouted anything in this. It's just we've got the population, and then we've looked at it to see, okay, does it need to be expanded? Do we need to make minor changes here and there? And yeah, we didn't change anything based off of that.
Allow me to also clarify that the airport is not under expansion consideration. We are going to be doing a master plan, which is akin to a business plan that will kick off this summer.
Are there any more questions on this portion of, we got a couple other little things to hit on transportation, but.
So on the map on the right side,
Yeah.
you're showing overflow into the side streets there as well? Is that what I'm saying?
The red lines, Bob explained.
Oh, okay, so red means traffic on this side. On this side, red is timing. Red projects are the first phase. Projects that we think should be kind of in that first time frame. Sorry. I think.
Phases, okay.
Yep. Good question. Sorry, I should have clarified that.
Do we have any models that determine in 2050, for example, as Main Street has a lot of heavier traffic, and some of that traffic's going to be offloaded onto our side streets?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if we could zoom that in, I'll show you, we could show you that. The good thing though is because most of those side streets are gray, that means most of those side streets, if we build the plan according to that we have, they'll be okay. They'll be able to absorb it without major traffic issues. That's a great question. Thank you. Any other thoughts, concerns, questions? All right, thank you. Yeah, let's keep it going.
And I think, Bob, if we want to meet with Heber City again, we're happy
Yeah,
to do that.
that was an assumption.
We can make it happen, not an issue.
Yep.
Yeah. Just real quickly, Sean Seeger with Mountain Land Association of Governments. Just wanted to give the group an update on the Wasatch County Transit Study. So we have authorization to proceed from UDOT. UDOT's providing a bulk or lion's share of the funding. I think we're estimating $100,000 study, $80,000 of that being UDOT federal funds that they manage, and then $20,000 being local funds that we'll put together. Mountain Land will be managing the study. We should be advertising this request for qualifications next week. So look forward to that, and we'll keep you involved, and we're going to get a group together of elected officials to act as a selection committee for the consultant or the vendor. Probably take us a month to do all that procurement. We have some desires to get from that study. We think that we're going to create a list of stakeholders to participate in the process. We're going to gather some of the travel patterns, the origins, the destinations, do some survey work, identify transit routes, look at what kind of transit routes we should have, what the mode is, assess the demand for them, and then prepare some potential transit routing and service plans if that shows like a positive result after we do that analysis to say, here's what you could do in terms of implementation if some of those transit routes look favorable. So that's basically all I had. Any councilman?
In the last discussion we had here,
Yeah.
we suggested that, I guess maybe some preliminaries, I guess we'll do that, but if you look at Camas Pro as well as Park City.
Yes, and we took that suggestion and we invited Utah Transit Authority to participate with us in funding the study. So we have a piece of money that will also look at the connection from Wasatch County to Utah County, as well as Wasatch County into Summit County.
Because the beauty of that too is if we hit Provo, we can tie right into their hole. We can get to Salt Lake that way.
That's right. That's right. There's a what they call the Salt Lake City to PC Connect. And that's a bus that connects Salt Lake City straight to Park City's Kimball Junction.
You missed the comment. You could connect through Provo to Salt Lake too.
Yes, and the Utah Transit Authority today runs bus service to Sundance. They're halfway up the canyon already.
Sean, when they do their study, will they be able to account for people who cannot use the bus, even though they're taking trips on the road, like contractors, construction workers, people who have to carry their tools with them, so they have to drive those trucks? Is there a way to account for that?
There is, that we use the household travel survey that we do about every 8 to 10 years. And then we also use the U.S. Census Bureau's, Kendall, help me, the survey that's done every year. They
Community survey.
American Community Survey component to say, okay, what's your profession, where do you live, where do you work, and then we can make some assumptions based upon that data to say, this guy's not going to take transit. He's got all his tools with him. It's impossible. But this person works in the service industry, does the same route every day. That person might take that transit route. And then it says, what's the likelihood of that person taking that trip? If it fits their schedule, how frequently does it run? How far is it? Is it good service, meaning every half hour, every 15 minutes? Or is it once every hour and then shuts down in the middle of the day? So these computer models that we use are going to be quite accurate in terms of predicting the travel. And we also have some good transit routes right now in place between Park City and Camas that we can say that's kind of similar to Heber City in terms of it being a residential area and connecting into Park City. What are they getting in terms of trips? How does that relate to the population in Wasatch County? So there's some techniques that these guys use to really dial that in and try to calibrate that. It won't just be an assumption of, well,
It's just not raw.
3% of all, it's more sophisticated.
Intentional.
Yeah. Any other questions on the transit study that I can answer? Very good. Eric Rasband with UDOT Region 3 is going to talk about the Heber Valley Parkway. And Eric, you want to walk us through some of the events and where we're at on that?
So a couple of weeks ago, the state met with our Transportation Commission through the SIP workshop where we prioritize projects. During that process, there was an opportunity to go through all the projects throughout the state and look for efficiencies on those projects, as well as bonding authority that the legislature has given to UDOT. Through that process, $450 million was identified as available money to be reprogrammed. About $400 million of that funding went to Davis and Weber County to several projects that are needed in that area. $25 million went to an interchange in Springville, between Spring Mills and Spanish Fork. For the Wasatch County area, $4 million was identified from the environmental impact statement for the Heber Parkway study. So that money will be available July 1. And what we're planning to do is we're planning to finish up the corridor study that we've been working on over the last year. As soon as that is finalized and complete, we'll include that study in the scope of work for the environmental document, and then we'll move forward to an environmental process. That environmental process is anticipated to take between 3 and 5 years. It's going to be very process-driven. There's going to be many opportunities to include the legislative body within the county, as well as the citizenry of the county. We'll be looking at wetlands, threatened and endangered species for wildlife, impacts to low-income residences, and looking at traffic and other aspects throughout that study. Again, I want to really emphasize that it's process-driven. The previous work will help inform. We've had a lot of public comment that has given us additional alternatives that we need to look at. Some of those alternatives look at a corridor that goes through Daniels, from the Daniel Canyon area up into the existing US 40 corridor near Jordan Meadows Reservoir. And so as the process continues, there's going to be opportunities for the public to provide that comment. We'll react to those comments and we'll perform those analyses associated with that. That's why the project is really anticipated to take between 3 and 5 years to finalize. Are there any questions?
The EIS or the whole?
It's a full environmental impact statement.
So the EIS could be 4 years.
Between 3 and 5 years.
What are the factors you said about lower income people, the impact on other people?
Yep.
How do we account for that? How do you get input from those people?
One, we would work on directly visiting with those impacted businesses. The federal government requires us to look at income levels and the impact. So, for instance, if it was a low-income trailer park that had a high minority population that primarily spoke Spanish, we've had environmental impact projects that have come in and said, you can't go through that area. Pleasant Grove was an area that we had that happen. And
So Daniels has one of those.
Yeah.
So you can't go through that trailer park, maybe.
Maybe. There's certainly other criteria, but we will look at all the criteria that's established by the National Environmental Protection Act and weigh that against the criteria. One of the very first steps in that process is to determine a project purpose and need. And that's a pretty lengthy process that the public and elected bodies have a lot of opportunity to provide input on. So through that,
That's a component of the EIS?
it is. It's really the guiding, if for lack of a better term, it's the mission statement for the environmental impact statement. And then once that is established and defined, all of the analysis, all the screening criteria is built around that purpose and need statement.
So how far north in our valley, there's been a fair amount of Facebook chatter that why are we starting where Heber's already grown out to? How far beyond that will the study at least look at?
We're going to be looking probably at the entire valley.
And how much does it weigh in if the county has a route purchased, county and city rather, mostly the county, if they have lands acquired that would, versus if you have to condemn a farm to put it in a better location, how much does that factor?
That helps. But the land that's purchased, if there are environmental, such as wetlands or the threatened endangered species on that property, even though the county may own that property, it may not be permittable through the Corps of Engineers.
But the economic analysis is such that if there's a better route, it might justify spending more to take it.
Could, yep. The process would help drive that.
Too many questions maybe, but what, is it going to look at all at what we're calling the eastern bypass?
Certainly. That's the comments that we've received, we're gonna have to look at it, yep.
So there's a potential that the study could result in saying, we can't use any of the land that you've already purchased.
That is a possibility. That is a possibility.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So does the EIS study get completed as a whole and you release the whole study at once? Or can you do segments of it and release segments of it after you've determined certain areas?
Help me understand that question a little bit more. Segments of the document or segments of a corridor?
Are there
Yeah, so now you're starting to say that you're really looking at the whole valley. That's news to a lot of people in our community because we haven't been thinking that way.
I've stated that in these 3 meetings, that this study could look at the entire valley.
It's process driven.
So you're looking at the eastern corridor, the eastern bypass, as much as you're looking at a western bypass.
If that's where the purpose and need statement takes
Well,
us.
what do you mean?
And based on the comments that we've received, we will need to look at that as well.
But I was referring to the eastern bypass really just takes some of our eastern county over onto four-way off of Center Street. I guess originally it come all the way around, but I kind of think that ship sailed, but maybe not.
It may not. It could be that from a permitting standpoint, if a corridor is permitted, it may be less impactful from the Corps of Engineers standpoint to go through a neighborhood than to go through that. And
So
I'm not saying that that could happen or that that will happen, but the process would help us identify the pros and cons and that criteria that it would be weighed on.
So to Tracy's question, I think it's part of what she's asking is, when you come up with the need, what do you call them?
The purpose and need.
The purpose and need, will that be published? Will that be released?
Yes.
Then you go from there.
Yeah, this process has multiple touch points through the document where the public has an opportunity to provide input. And really the public in this process is driven through this input process. And so as we receive comments from the public, we're required to look at those comments and we're required to evaluate them further.
Somewhat related to Tracy's question and the eastern, why possibly if we could get segments on part of that eastern piece coming around from Center Street around to 40, there's some development pressure wanting to know where that needs to hit 40, which might need to happen before the 3, 4, 5 year study.
And we couldn't give you a definitive answer on that.
Because we hope to connect and go around.
It has to go through the process.
Okay.
So we can't
You
give
can't
you
say-
a final answer until the process has been finalized and completed.
Okay.
So could Heber City decide their eastern bypass and construct it and have it completely from Center Street to Highway 40, but then you guys come back later and go, we're making that a major corridor?
What I would suggest is that Heber is required to go through the exact same environmental process to do any of their construction as well.
Even if we use local money?
Even if we use local money, it's a requirement. We have to use, a lot of times the local governments don't go through that process, but it's a risk that they could be challenged if they don't go through that.
By whom?
Anybody. Could be anybody in this room. It could
We
be
don't
anybody.
do it like EISs on city streets.
You should be.
You know, I'm having a problem with the process, because you told us, well, we were told, you didn't tell us, but we were told, if we
the right of way. That would move it up on the list. It would get in the eyes of UDOT. We'd show that we're really interested and committed to do so.
That was
Now
you.
you're telling us, well, what we purchased may not even be in line with what we're doing.
What I'm saying is the process needs to be followed.
We
And
follow the
fact-
process we give it.
The environmental process needs to be followed. And if that corridor has been purchased and it clears the environmental requirements, then it could be looked at as a corridor.
But what triggers the environmental requirements? Because we're getting federal money or not, or because,
It could be a combination of
No,
federal,
because
state, city.
well, I'm just, I'm coming back to that, really. This Midway, do EISs on your city streets?
They
We
need-
sure don't.
They should be doing some level of environmental. There are multiple levels of environmental. The environmental impact statement is the highest level of the environmental process that we can go. There's one that's called a categorical exclusion, where basically we look at the project and we look at the impacts of that project, and if there's no significant environmental impacts, then it's categorically excluded from the environmental requirements to NEPA, and they're allowed to construct it. But that project needs to at least be evaluated from an environmental standpoint to verify that there's not environmental impacts associated with that project.
Maybe Muirfield is a good example of a project in Heber City that I think went through further environmental analysis in the wetlands on the north end of Heber. What was that, 20 years ago or so? 15.
Yeah, it was 97,
Which one was that?
Muirfield.
So
Yeah.
I think if you were to go back historically, US 6, I'll just use this as an example. US 6 going down into Carbon County. If you go down there today, you look off to the left and there's a castle tower on the east side of the river. Where the US 6 corridor goes through, there's not a castle tower. There used to be a castle tower there. When US 6 was built, that was prior to the National Environmental Protection Act, and the department went through that and put it back through it. Projects like that throughout the country were built without an evaluation of the impacts of the natural environment. And so Congress enacted this process. And since basically 1968, we've been following this.
So what elements are they looking, are they looking clearly at wetlands, but Castle Tower was a geographic feature, right? What you're talking about?
What's that?
You're talking about a geographic feature of Castle Tower.
That was just an example, but yeah.
I know.